What's going on, everyone? Welcome in, welcome in. Oh, I thought I was tripping for a second. What's going on? Spy to the moon, Tesla double top at 780 Monday. That would be interesting, actually. What's going on? What's going on? To have Tesla double top at 780, that would be beautiful, actually. Yeah, Tesla did us dirty. I'm not gonna lie. After having the Oracle alert and then just straight mooning, that was not pretty. After having that Oracle alert, it really did us dirty. I was expecting that reversal right when it was about to go green, and it just didn't happen that way. So I actually entered into that position right when Tesla was about to go green on the small account. So I ended up into a meeting. I couldn't exit. I saw my phone going off, and I'm like, damn it, damn it. And by the time I got out, I was like, okay, yeah, I got whipsawed on that. So I took a little bit of a hit on the small account. It is what it is. I'll bounce back come next week. Yeah, I got a little greedy on Tesla. If you took profits right at open on Tesla, you that Oracle paid out. You got a solid at least 20% depending where you got in. But you got a solid pretty much profit on Tesla off of that Oracle if you swung puts overnight and took your profits as you should have at open. Okay, so there was no reason that you shouldn't have done that. Yeah, in reality, I did get greedy. So I ended up trying to hold. I did not expect that kind of bounce because that's not even a bounce. That was just a rally. Okay, so that looking at that, and I'm kind of punishing myself for looking at Tesla right now, but that's just a massive candle. Look at the daily on that. That was literally a $30 move from the bottom all the way up. And now I do see that resistance of where it just pushed out. I wish I would have saw that while I was in the meeting, but it is what it is. Sometimes you just got to take the L and just move on with it. And so I'll wait. I'll bounce back. But that was just a beautiful move right there. And if I actually zoom out a little bit to get a nice little outer picture, you can actually see that it actually did have a little bit of an inverse head and shoulder action to it. You had a left shoulder, you had the head, and then you had that pretty much massive right shoulder, you would say. And I right around the neckline was when I entered those puts. I wasn't expecting that to break out like that. I was expecting the rejection, and that was right when it just popped and went green, and it flew. I literally just flew. By the time that I saw it, and I'm like, all right, my stop loss is already at like 30%. Should I just cut here? It was already gone. It just kept going straight up. And I was like, it is what it is at this point. Can I go over Amazon, Neo, and Spy? All right, so I'm gonna choose two of those. I'm gonna choose that I go over Amazon and Spy because I don't think anyone wants to look at Neo. I don't think anyone wants to look at a China stock in general. And I'm pretty sure everyone would agree with that. But I'll get there, don't worry. Let me just cover futures real quick, show you a quick update on S&P futures. Let me get out to the daily, give you the bigger picture. So for those of you that are not aware, I had this channel, the ascending channel. We ended up breaking down. We had a little bit of a pivot point on a prior resistance level that I had. And so I wanted to actually highlight that. And so that's the level that we actually hit today. Now we could see a little bit of a chop come Monday before that next leg higher. And then ultimately, we're going to end up pushing right around to that 449 level that I'm expecting. So about another 5 point push on SPY would be that level. So if I were to outline this, it would be right around this level that I'm expecting, which I'll probably have to re-outline. Okay, let me get another trend line real quick. Actually, no, it did show up. Let me delete that. So right around this level of 447, next level would be close enough to that 447, and that would push us right into that 449 level. Right around here. Let's see. Yeah, this is where it should have been. So that 449 level will push us right close enough. We'll probably wick right off of the support of that ascending channel. And then that's when things will start getting a little more choppy. We'll probably see some kind of headline that will push us back down at that point. I know that Avery, if I'm not mistaken, also has a similar level on DEF CON right around that 449 level. If I'm not mistaken, I have to go back and look at his DEFCON level, but he has 449 as the top, if I'm not mistaken, as well, before we see a reversal. But again, that's about another 5 point rally that we have come early next week. So that's where we're gonna see QQQ likely just rally. And I know that Avery was also looking at Facebook today. I'll see if I get to that one. But then also again, we also have this head and shoulders, a micro one and then a larger one. So I want to see us get over that key level again. It was 15,389 was the key level to testing that neckline of that micro head and shoulders. And then we can end up pushing right over to this close enough to 1500, 500, in which that will give us another about 200 point rally on NASDAQ and about a 5 point move on SPY. So those would be the two cases that I'm looking at as far as Nasdaq and futures. So at this moment, we are still bullish is the sentiment right now. Okay. Few plays I'll go over. This is one that I actually want to highlight. I actually saw this after the fact because I didn't get to really look too much into stocks. I didn't trade as much today, but I did highlight Shopify on my recap yesterday. And if you actually recall, I said if it ended up breaking this trend line, it was just going to likely flush and that support is in sight, but it's not going to get there just yet. We found a nice little base as it curled, but that was a massive drop. That drop was from 1475 down to 1439. And then you even made another about 1445 down to 1429. You made another, what, 20 point drop from that point? So that was a beautiful breakdown that you saw off of that trend line. I just wanted to highlight that one. The Tesla, we already looked at Tesla. I didn't even realize Tesla had that many green candles in a row on off the hourly. That's just insanity. But again, if once you have all those green candles, you're gonna get some kind of retracement. So if you are still holding calls on Tesla, of course, there's gonna be somewhat of a retracement. If I were to look at the retracement level that I wanted to see, I'd probably have to dial in close enough to the 30 minute. Yeah, the 30 minute would probably give me a better level here. And I would want to see at least at the bare minimum to have it hold right around this level. So right around 766 will be that level. I want to see it at least hold. If you're still swinging calls over this weekend, 766 will be that stop loss mentally because that will be where it'll be a healthy pullback, but it could still make that next leg higher. Okay. Other than that, Netflix was another one. I highlighted this one as well last night on the daily recap. I gave you the outline of a little bit of a head and shoulder action off of this pop that it recently had. You had that left shoulder, you had the head and the right shoulder, and as you saw, it dropped right off. It ended up giving a little bit of a double bottom action here. Right around that 583.88, it did double bottom at 583.88, and that's when you just saw that rally pushing it right back up. So that was one that I highlighted last night also. Costco was another one, and this one was actually really massive. I did not expect this type of move at all. I did give you guys this wedge, and I expected it to push towards my resistance levels that I had here. It wiped out that 458 level, and then it wiped out that 459 level. It just soared. So right now, it's likely going for this high, this recent high that we have right here, which that recent high is right around the level of 469. I wouldn't be surprised if we get up to that level. The only thing to also keep in mind is that you're looking at a little bit of a rising wedge action going on right now. So that's the other thing to keep in mind of this rising wedge action. And I can probably pull this up just a little bit to give it a better support. Yeah, right around that level. So you do have a little bit of a rising wedge action here on Costco, so just be mindful of that. But I can see this going zigzagging straight up right into that 469 level before it does end up breaking down. But that support level would be key. So that's what you want to have outlined if you are scalping for that to go to that 469. Otherwise, just wait for the support and then you can go ahead and just short that. Okay. UPST is also on my radar here. I just thought I'd outline that for you guys. This is another one that I know Avery's been all over it. It had a nice little 8 point drop. So you do have that ascending, expanding wedge here. As we are approaching support, that's why I do have it outlined here. Because once it does get to support, I do want to see if that's going to be a buying opportunity for the upside or if we end up breaking, if that's going to be a buying opportunity to short this down to another support level, in which that's next support level that I'm looking at is right around this level right here, of which that would be 317. If it ends up flushing below 317, then the next level that I'm looking at is right around that 305 level would be the next level of support that I'm looking at. So those are those two levels that I'll be looking at. But again, when you approach support, especially when stocks are pushing as much as this does on a daily basis, this gives you a move easily of over $7 on a daily. That's definitely something that's going to be on my radar, especially as a daily watch list. Okay. Let me see what other ones I had outlined. I'm not certain why I had Disney outlined. I don't recall why, but let me actually pull it out. And I know that the banana actually broke down, but now I see why. So we ended up dropping. If you guys remember, that was a flush that we ended up having down to that 169 level. But ever since we did have this micro rally here, I'm looking at this little pennant that we have going on off of this, which you would say is a bull pennant. So I'm looking at this pennant. I want to see if we're going to get that push right up to the resistance level of that 170 into the support, more so or less, of where that banana support would have been. But to be more specifically, I would say that support would be right around that level, close enough to, let me see what the support level would be. The support level I really like would be right around that 178 level. That would be the support level, the resistance level that I'm looking at. So resistance would be around 178.50. And if it ended up breaking down, then we can easily retrace and go right back down to this level, right around here, of which I would like of 174. So that would be about a $2 drop. So that's what I actually had outlined there. That would be more so of a scalp, and I know Disney's more of a slow mover, despite the fact that it ended up having that 1 day flush. So I'll keep that one on radar. The other one that I just wanted to keep pointing out was that American Express. I had this one actually outlined on my Twitter. This thing went straight up. It's still rallying right off of that breakout of this descending triangle, continuing to push. Just to highlight that, Apple's another one that I actually do have on my radar. You have a descending broadening wedge. So I will outline this one as well as we're approaching resistance on the wedge. So right now you see we're right at that resistance. Could we get a little bit of a pullback close enough to that one lower 146 level? Yeah, I would expect that. Let me see actually where the support level is on Apple real quick because I want to see what support level I would particularly like. Let me see. So that support level that I do want to see hold is 146.23. That's the level that I actually had noted. So 146.23. Actually, that could be a little bit of a pretty good pullback, which will be right around this level, which I should actually have a cursor. Right around this 146.23, which will be a healthy pullback before making that next push to break that resistance. So I will keep this one definitely on my radar. And I know someone called it out yesterday. Why didn't AirDrake cover Apple yesterday? Because I was waiting for it to get to that resistance level. And then this is the more so the key level that I want to see it actually break out and then potentially make its way back up to that 150 level. So actually having my resistance levels, I'll tell you the resistance levels that I actually have outlined. So first I'm looking for 147.73. That was the first level I'm looking around. Next level will be around that 148.56. And then ultimately the last level that I'm looking near will be that 150.14 level that we get back to. And then we'll see what it does at that point in time. And I likely think that we're going to see that 150 level again, but I don't see this going on beyond that 150 level short term because I'm seeing a little bit more headwinds coming into the market before we make that push on that we really rally on Apple for that matter. Okay. Other than that, let me see what other ones came out on my radar that I actually have highlighted. AFRM is another one. This one has been a monster mover. I'm looking at that support level on this little bit of what you would say is a falling wedge. I want to see this actually hold around that high 142 level, 122 level. So around that 122.72 level would be where I want to see it actually hold as support on the falling wedge. And if it does, then I will take that ride right up to the resistance at least, bare minimum, to see it actually break out above that falling wedge. Okay. I know that also on this one, AMD, if I'm not mistaken, Avery's actually still holding swings on this one, if I'm not mistaken. And I could probably go out to the 1 hour. I still love AMD here, even at this position that it is. And it didn't get the move that we wanted per se. And I know the same scenario actually happened with Roku. You know, it took a little bit of time for Roku to make that move that we were expecting before it made that $10 push. And so I'm expecting AMD to have one of these days where it just has that $4 push, maybe a $5 push, and it gets right into that level, that 108 level that I have as my target. But the good thing is that we ended up making the breakout. We already retested. So we're going to likely chop around this area before we see that push like Oroku. Okay. I believe that once we get over this level, that 106, we can try and push over this 106 level. Then we are likely going to see this end up breaking out. Right around that 106.37 level will be where I want to see this get right out and see just a massive candle push to get likely about a $4 move on a single day, and then we'll probably chop around this area as we see Roku's doing the same thing, because as you saw Roku when it did the same thing out of the falling wedge and it retested, you had a little bit of chop before it made that massive push. We chopped around in that zone, which you see I had the same similar zone in AMD before we ended up chopping back down, basically with the volatility bringing it back down. Okay. Now I do see some weird tickers. Let me see some tickers that you guys actually called out. Let's see TSCO real quick. I haven't looked at this Tractor Supply. Wow. Now this actually does look pretty nice. I will admit you got a nice little breakout of this resistance level right here. And I think I can actually outline this resistance level to look a little bit better here. Granted, I'm on a 1 hour. If I push down to that 30 minute, yeah, it does look better on the 30 minute. Definitely on the 30 minute. You got a solid push out of an inverse head and shoulders right there. So that all-time high, there's nothing stopping you. That first stop would be that 213, and then you'll see that 213.45, and then you're within pennies of getting to that high. So you're definitely in a beautiful breakout. Maybe have a little bit of a red candle showing a retest of that breakout of that inverse head and shoulders before you see that follow through to the upside. Okay. I know that someone actually called out, they wanted to see something. If I actually do have Amazon, I can show you Amazon of what I actually have outlined here. Amazon does look beautiful. I'm looking at this descending, expanding right now. I like the base that it actually formed right around that 33.93 level. As you see, it formed a nice little base right there. And it's actually pushed right out of that. You could say that this downtrend right here. As you see, you had a nice little downtrend and it pushed right out of that downtrend. And so I'm expecting this to make that strong push, and we're likely going to see this get right over to that 34.50 area. If I wanted to be a little bit more specific as far as that, let me see the level that I'm particularly looking at. So 34.52 would be that level that I'm particularly looking at to reach that resistance, and that would be a similar scenario to what you see Apple looks like right now. Apple looking at that resistance on the expanding as well. So we'll see this get to that resistance, but then I don't know. What my concern will be is if we're going to get a straight massive candle pushing us right out of the resistance, or do we tether right around that resistance before we get the follow through? Okay. One quick second. Huh. Okay. Other than that, you didn't mention Amazon. The other one that you mentioned, I already went over futures pretty much. That's cover SPY. And then FedEx. I was looking at FedEx, I think the other day. I didn't really like the price action, to be honest with you. It wasn't something I particularly liked. The fact that it ended up breaking support level, you had that massive gap down. It wasn't something that interests me at this moment in time. I do want to see. Because after you have this, you would expect a nice bounce, but it's not getting that bounce. Now, if I were to look, let me see where my support levels are. So that way I can give you a better idea. If you're looking for maybe a floor of some sort, let me see. So, interestingly enough, our 52-week low on FedEx would be 226.60. That would be which you're about 4 pennies away from that low, that 52-week low. Below that, it does get uglier, in which your floor is actually looking like 223. 223.43 is looking like the floor right now, in which, let's see if I can get that cursor close enough to 223.43. Just another push, right close enough to right that level right there. So that would be the level that I will be watching it for. If it ends up getting to that 223.43 level, I will look to get into scale into a position for a nice little swing if it presents itself. But if that doesn't end up happening, then I will cut that loss pretty quickly. This is one of those names where I would rather actually have my stop loss pretty tight. So that will be the case on that. And I'm just looking at something. All right, so something was pointed out to me, and maybe I could have actually looked at it, but I didn't. So if I actually look at Tesla on the 1 day, and I'll actually delete what I actually have outlined, so I can actually show you what was pointed out to me, is a beautiful little rising wedge. But I think Tesla's a little more immune to rising wedges, to be honest with you. I don't really believe in Tesla with rising wedges too much because as you saw with Tesla, Tesla has a mind of its own. It shows weakness, but then it just decides to just rally. So that's a little bit more of a concern for me, and this would actually start right around this level. I will push it out right about here, and it would likely align perfectly with these support levels. Yeah, so as you see, you're right. The most important part is that you're right next to the resistance of that rising wedge, and that's the key to point out. So like I mentioned that you were likely going to get a pullback to that 766 level. If you remember me pointing that out, you could end up continuing to chop into the zone. I don't expect to break the support just yet, but that will be something that you want to keep in mind that you're right next to the resistance of this rising wedge. All right. So that was pointed out to me, and I did know I noticed it now, so it does look very clean at this point. And I think it actually looks better actually pulling that in right there. So that would be the perfect rising wedge right there, in which you get that nice pullback to 766, and then that will be the level where you want to see it consolidate, and then likely what's going to happen is you're going to continue to chop right into what I believe is you're going to get close enough to about 785, 790 before we end up seeing this pullback. Okay. Let me see what else there was that I wanted to cover. Baba. Wow. You guys really went into the dirt to pull out the name Baba. Baba's literally has to be the last ticker that I would have wanted to look at the very moment. Just because of the fact that how ugly Baba looks. And the funny part was that I actually mentioned I was going to buy Baba today in premium chat. Just because of the fact that the 150 mark was really in my head. And when I saw it just tank right below that 150 and drop another $5, I was like, forget this. I don't even want to see it. Let me actually go out to the weekly because it'll probably paint a better picture. And so the funny part was that I actually had a little bit of an expanding triangle here, expanding wedge, you want to say. And so, worst case scenario, I do see this pushing down all the way down to the 120 level. Now, if I'm looking for the near term support in which you would expect a nice decent bounce off of this, that level would be, let me see, let me take a look. Because I have not really looked at Baba too much. But let me see the level that I particularly like. We already cracked 148. We already were, so 142 would be that next level that we're going to see if it's going to hold there or crack. And then below that, you have right around this level of 130. So if we don't hold 142, we're going down to 130. And ultimately, if that 130 ends up cracking, then I'm looking at 120 right where my support level is on this expanding wedge. Okay, so it's not looking pretty. This is one where you have to test the waters because imagine if you ended up trying to catch the knife through this entire drop, that would have been horrible. I mean, imagine you ended up buying around 220. Then next thing you know, you ended up trying to buy and catch this knife right around that 189 level. So catching a knife, is extremely hard with China. The same thing you see with Baidu, as you saw with Neo, it went up uh, what like 60 something dollars, close enough to about $66. You still can't find any kind of momentum here, any kind of room. The only thing that actually looks nice with Neo actually is that you do have a little bit of a floor, which is a little bit more actually considerably with this floor being around $30. If this actually gets back to $30, I would rather buy Neo right now. And that actually likely will happen probably before the knife catching on Bala. Okay, so this is actually more interesting on Neo than it is with Bala because at least you have a more defined floor with Neo here as the support level. Despite everything that's going on with China right now and every other name that's bleeding other than JD and Neo, I mean, Baidu and Baba are just taking the worst punishment that there is. And if I'm not mistaken, BDD is also another China name as well that's just been taking a beating. I mean, there's nothing there that I want a knife catch per se. So what I would say is just caution. If you're trying to scale in, go in very small. Don't go in with a heavy position. Let me see what other names. I think I covered pretty much the names that I wanted to cover for the most part. Yeah, I got to all the names that I wanted to really cover. Other than that, actually Dkng, which should cover. I'm actually holding like one contract in this. It was this falling wedge that I'm looking at. So I'm expecting to see this get a nice little push out of this falling wedge. Once we get over this 51, about 51, 54 level, close, yeah, around close enough to that 51, mid 51, 51, 55 on this candle, right around close enough to that resistance level. Yeah, it's 51.55 is the exact level that I'm looking at breaking above. And then once we break over that, I'm targeting 54 level, which I actually thought I actually had it outlined here, but it's not. So let me get that right there. 54 is what I will be targeting on that. It's only one contract because I only had a small amount of buying power remaining. But that will be the target, and I wouldn't mind actually holding that, swinging that position, and then closing it out in the money. And then hopefully Monday we'll see a better opportunity for the remainder of my buying power that should be coming back. All right. Other than that, we covered everything pretty much that I wanted to. Stay tuned for the newsletter plays and then also for classroom session on Sunday night with Tom. But you guys have a good weekend. Get some studying in, look at some charts, but also, clear the mind. Hopefully you guys close green. If you close red, this is the time to really just step back, relax, try to think what you did wrong, what steps you took wrong, what stop loss didn't trigger that should have triggered for that matter if you actually had a stop loss. But try to figure out, basically, what could you have improved on? We always want to get better, we always want to make better decisions. And so this is the time where, okay, rather than be pissed with yourself, be mad, try to figure out and look back at the charts. Okay, I entered here. Why did I enter here? I took this loss, but it ended up, pushing higher after the fact. What key level was it holding? So those are the things you want to think about. So use these weekends time to go and figure out those things. Make yourself a better trader. Try to execute more promptly. Even as you see the experienced traders as myself, Tom, Avery, we do make mental errors from time to time. And so take the weekends to really just refresh yourself and get back to what you know you should be doing. Okay. Other than that, again, have a good weekend, you guys. We'll see you guys Monday.